think it is true to say that our Dharma journey not only is long, but sometimes can seem to be very long. If awakening was so easy, then the world would be a very different place, and people not grasping after their happiness through following their desires or pushing away their aversions, but to live in balance. And I think, certainly from my own perspective on this long journey, it is good to be inspired. It is good to have Dharma heroes, and I have several, beginning with the Buddha himself. This man, even from a very early age, when I first heard about him and his story, what we really remember about the greatness of these beings is their kindness. The Buddha didn't want to teach after he had awakened, but out of compassion, he felt the responsibility to share what he had understood, and that sharing took place, and he became quite famous. And so now, 2,600 years later, we have the teachings of the Buddha. And then my own teacher, who I spent 22 years with, really, to meet his compassion and his love and his wisdom was always inspiring for me, and I would aspire to be like that. The first evening that I met him, all those years ago, his teaching was really very simple. If you want to be happy in your life, you have to cultivate a loving heart. And that message, arrived in my heart, and for the rest of our time, and now, I aspire to offer only love and compassion to the world in every situation. But these are things that take some time. These are things that we have to commit to. So often it is good to have people that we can admire for their fortitude in their Dharma practice. And what I wanted to share today in this very short video is something from a collection of teachings called the Inner Chapters, attributed to someone called Chuang Tzu. And this, when I first heard it, I can call it a poem if you like, but it's just a short teaching. But when I first noticed this, when it was first presented to me, immediately it was inspiring. This is the direction I want my life to take, to be someone who has a quality of beauty, who has a quality of harmlessness. And so I have this teaching with me. It's called the One of Wisdom. The One of Wisdom and the Opening of the Heart. So if I just read it, if I go through it, and then to go back and see if I can open it a little bit, and just to encourage you, if you want, to go further with your practice, because this is where it takes you. If we let go a little, there's a little peace, and if we let go a lot, there's a lot of peace, and if we let go completely, complete peace. So this is our journey to put down the obstacles to our own awakening, which is here. You're not taking something from outside. You're not learning something. In fact, the whole of our Dharma practice is an unlearning process. You're unlearning how to stop just following the mind, to do whatever it tells you in every moment, but to become quieter, to become more still, to become more loving, less afraid. Love and fear are the antithesis of each other. And so we don't really need to cultivate love. What we need to do is let go of the fear. So that's our loving kindness process, to wish ourselves freedom from the conditions of our suffering. So this teaching is called the One of Wisdom, and it's about the opening of the heart. So it is this: the one in whom wisdom flows easily harms no other being by their actions, and yet does not know themselves to be gentle or kind. The one in whom wisdom flows easily does not bother with their own interests, and yet does not despise those who do. They do not struggle to make money, but they do not make a virtue of poverty. They go their own way without relying on others, but do not pride themselves in walking alone. While they do not follow the crowd, they do not complain of those who do. Rank and reward mean nothing to them. Disgrace and shame do not deter them. They're not always looking for right and wrong, always deciding yes and no. Therefore, the masters of old said, the one of true Dharma remains unknown. Perfect virtue produces nothing. No self is true self, and the greatest one is nobody. So this is this beautiful verse, the one of wisdom, the one in whom wisdom flows easily. This is our practice. This is not to get things that we have to remember. At the beginning, of course, we have our sila, we have our ideas of what morality is and how we should live. But ultimately, our morality and our way of living in the world and our way of dealing with people and events and situations has to be spontaneous, just arising from the heart. Now, that's only going to happen when this personal, this self-identity becomes less and less and ultimately falls away till there is just a being manifesting in life. And that being is the one of wisdom, not man, not woman. There's no gender inequality in Dhamma. Anyone who speaks for it, I think, is either deluded or manipulating the situation. Women and men are completely equal in Dhamma, of course, of course. The one in whom wisdom flows easily harms no other beings by their actions, and yet does not know themselves to be gentle or kind. It's natural for us to live a harmless life. Ahimsa, one of the greatest Dharma teachings that we can apply ourselves to, harmlessness. To live a life where we don't bring harm to ourselves, that we take care of ourselves from a loving perspective. To live a life where we don't bring harm to others, to human beings, to animals, to insects, to fish, to birds, to everything that we share this planet with. But we do it spontaneously, without any thought, because we are in tune, we are in harmony with all of life now. Suffering is suffering. It doesn't need an intellectual debate whether animals suffer. We know they suffer. Animals feel pain, just like you do. Once you reflect on these things, then the heart says, okay, so I know what pain is like. How can I inflict it on another being? Because I know what it's like, emotional pain, psychological pain, and physical pain. So the one in whom wisdom flows easily harms no other beings by their actions, and yet does not know themselves to be gentle or kind. There is no self-view around this. There is just a being manifesting in time and space. The one in whom wisdom flows easily does not bother with their own interests, but does not despise those who do. It is true that as the heart opens more and more, our interest and our fascination with the world and all the myriad things that the world can offer does become less and less and less. That the idea of it, this is why the masters live in the middle of a forest, according to the ancient stories, or on the top of a mountain. Because they're no longer really connected. The world of the things I've just described is a place to visit. It's a place to do the shopping, or perhaps if you're going to be social, to take a coffee with someone. But it holds no fascination as this is where our happiness lies. And yet, the one of wisdom does not despise those who are interested in that, those whose life is still very much connected and attached and based in the world. We are each responsible for our own life. The Dharma Master shares Dharma. Those who have ears to hear, take it with them. Those who can't hear it, go about their life. But may all beings be happy. We're not selecting, these are great people because they have a meditation practice. These are not great people because they like to go dancing on a Friday night, something like this. The one of wisdom remains completely in balance, not judging others, not deciding who is worthy of kindness, who is worthy of generosity, who is worthy of Dhamma. This is not coming from wisdom. They do not struggle to make money, but do not make a virtue of poverty. Again, when we surrender into life, it seems to me, my own experience is that life gives us everything we need. Perhaps not everything we want, but most certainly everything we need. When our heart is open, then we begin to meet spontaneously people who support this kind of life. Not materially necessarily, but again, psychologically or emotionally. And so making money is not part of it. I mean, the world is filled now with people sharing all kinds of spiritual teachings and becoming very rich from it. This is not the Dharma way. It's not to say that people should not receive an income because we have to live if we still live in the world. But the greed part falls away. How much do we need? And if we have more than we need, then we can share it. Well, of course. Of course. There is nothing sort of magical about Dharma. The arguments to promote it are very simple. Live with love and be aware. And you are the first one to benefit from that. Cultivate dana, this sharing attitude. The Buddha said, if you really understood the benefit of sharing, you would not take one mouthful of food without first offering it to someone else. That's so beautiful. So they do not struggle to make money. We cultivate a trust in the universe, if you like. But at the same time, we don't make a virtue of poverty. The idea of look at me, look how poor I am, how simple my life is. Look at my robes, how they're so patched and need to be replaced. Humility is everything. We look at our own life. Am I doing the best I can? Yes? Good. Then the rest can just fall away. And the best we can do is to live with love and be aware. And to promote that within ourselves in every moment. They go their own way without relying on others, but do not pride themselves in walking alone. There is, so much of Dharma is about self-responsibility. I am responsible for my life, and I accept the consequence of the choices I make. For me personally, I live a very simple life, and I accept the consequences of that. It fits me very well, actually. And so, I'm not following the crowd, if you like. That we find what means something to us. What is it that has value in our life? Because once we find that, then we have direction. And it can be anything. As I already said, there is no judgment in Dhamma. So those who want to become disciples and train, okay, that's fine. Those who prefer to do something else, that's fine too. But in the end, we have to follow our heart, as Shakespeare said in the play Hamlet. This above all, to thine own self be true. To our own self, to our own heart. Find that thing that has value for you and then follow that. But no need to cultivate arrogance. They go their own way without relying on others, but do not pride themselves in walking alone. We just follow our own path quietly, humbly, one day, 1 hour, 1 moment, 1 step at a time. Because this is our life now. We don't have to justify it, or explain it, or rationalize it, or give a dialogue about it. It's just what we choose to do, to follow this particular path, whatever that path is for you. Rank and reward mean nothing to them. Disgrace and shame do not deter them. They're not always looking for right or wrong, always deciding yes or no. Rank and reward mean nothing to them. We're not looking to be held above others, to have positions. Certainly in spiritual traditions now, there's a lot of ego encouragement, if you like, where people, after so many retreats or so many years, get belts and badges and little scarves to wear around their neck. We don't have, in our pure Dharma tradition, we don't have anything. Everyone remains invisible. What promotes you is your goodness. When new people come to sit our retreats or to train, then we take care of them. But there is no hierarchy in our practice. For myself and my teacher, I was with him for 22 years. I never got any special hat to wear or a badge to put on my clothes. I just was so infinitely grateful that I could be with this person. So we're not seeking to be honored in some way. It's not like actors receiving Oscars and this kind of thing. Rank and reward mean nothing to them. Disgrace and shame do not deter them. We don't belong to the world anymore, so the things that are important in the world no longer influence us, and we do what is appropriate to do. And there are so many stories, the Japanese Zen stories, about this kind of thing where the master does what is appropriate to do, even though in the eyes of the world there's something wrong or something amiss with that. So rank and reward mean nothing to them, and disgrace and shame do not deter them. We do what we're supposed to do, actually, just what we're supposed to do. They're not always looking for right and wrong, always deciding yes and no. They're not always looking for right and wrong, always assessing every situation, always assessing every moment, every conversation. Is this right or is it wrong? And what are we doing when we are assessing right and wrong? How comfortable do I feel with this? Do I give it a yes because if I agree with this proposition, then I feel more comfortable? Or do I give it a no because I feel more comfortable with that? Or does it in some way, and it does in some way, sustain the self-identity, something to fight for or fight against? They're not always looking for right or wrong and always deciding yes and no. One of I think, the great liberating things about Dharma practice is when we come to the realization that we don't always have to have an opinion about everything, that we can be quiet. We can say, when people ask us, what do you think about this? So, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what I think. I don't have an opinion about this. Our life is much more direct in the sense of, can I help this person? If I can, I'm going to do it. Can I help this person? No. Then I'm going to let that go because I can't do anything about it. So our life is much more direct, to do what we can do to alleviate the suffering of the beings that we come into contact with. So we're not always looking for these positions to take socially or morally, gender positions. We see they're just moments of mind. They're just ideas arising and passing away, arising and passing away. Therefore, the masters of old said, the one of Dharma remains unknown. Perfect virtue produces nothing. No self is true self, and the greatest one is nobody. Therefore, the masters are old. So I mentioned occasionally my background, although I did train in Zen, which I completely loved, but also my fundamental teaching in Dhamma practice for all those years with my teacher was from the Theravada tradition. And Theravada is a word which means something like the teaching of the elders. It's this supposed to be this unbroken tradition from the Buddha himself right down to my teacher and then to me, and then I share it with you. The teaching of the elders, the old masters, the ones who did the work, the ones who took the teachings, they examined them, they followed them, they applied them to their lives, and they met the consequence or the results of that. So beautiful. Therefore, the masters of old said, the ones that we can offer our respect to, the ones who have shown us the way. Therefore, the masters of old said, the one of true Dharma remains unknown. This is not a business opportunity. This is not a way to become famous or to make money or to have a huge following on Facebook or social media, to be an influencer. It's not anything like this. It is this quiet, beautiful dissolving, ultimately, of an attachment or an identification to a self-identity, to the I, me, mine, and my thoughts. Therefore, the masters of old said, the one of true Dharma remains unknown. Perfect virtue produces nothing. We're not doing something now to get something in the future. We're not being kind to people or whatever else to get some kind of acknowledgement of that. To have someone saying, thank you so much, you're so beautiful. This is not why we do anything. We follow our heart. The natural disposition of the heart is to be kind. It is to be generous. It is to be playful. The natural disposition of the heart is to be awakened. When we follow our morality, for example, our 5 simple rules, then we are living a life that an awakened being spontaneously lives. Spontaneously. And virtue arises spontaneously. So we don't harm other beings, we don't steal, we don't abuse others, we don't use our speech in cruel and harmful ways, and we don't use any kind of drugs to alter the consciousness. Why? Because it doesn't come from us. Those movements no longer exist within us. So perfect virtue produces nothing. No self is true self. Now this, of course, the idea of no self is it's actually a misnomer, but it's an expression that people use a lot without real understanding. The greatest teaching of the Buddha is called anatta, the emptiness of a permanent or fixed self-identity. It's not saying there is no self, but there's no fixed self. So what self is this process of movement, of this moment conditioning the next one, conditioning the next one, the next one, and the next one. And all of that creates, in the mind, a habit of being. So someone that we can call me. I'm always like this. Look, I'm this. And then from that comes all kinds of comparisons and grasping at identities. I know what I am. I'm a doctor. I'm a nurse. I'm a Dharma teacher. I'm a man. I'm British. I'm German. I'm Spanish. I'm French. American. Whatever. All these grasping at identities. But they're all impermanent. They're all arising and passing away. And once we know that, then we found the true self. That there isn't something to hold on to. There isn't something that we can ever reach inside and say, that's me. There I am. Look, you can see me. By the time any of that has happened, self has changed 1,000 times. So we live with this process. Fundamentally, it's connected to anicca, of impermanence. And then manifesting as anatta, the emptiness of a permanent or fixed self-identity. So no self is true self. And the greatest one is nobody. That ego and attachments and identifications to a self-identity all fall away. And when somebody asks, well, who or what are you? The real answer is, well, I'm just this being here at the moment. I'm just this being manifesting here in front of you in this moment. Because when I look for something, I can't find it. I can't find something to say, I am this or I am that. It's the traditional story of Bodhidharma, the first Zen patriarch. When he was asked, well, who are you to speak to me? It was the emperor of China asking this. Who are you to speak to me in this way? Bodhidharma said, I don't know. He turned around and walked away. Now, he gave an absolute teaching. Who are you? I don't know. I don't find anything to grasp at. But conventionally, if you had asked him, well, conventionally, who are you? He said, well, my name is Daruma. I come from the south of India. My father and my mother were these people. I have my sisters and my brothers. Conventionally, but in absolute terms, the true self, the greatest one, is nobody. So this is this teaching from Chuang Tzu called the One of Wisdom, and it's the opening of the heart. This, for me, this verse was inspiring, and like everything to do with Dhamma, it needs to be reflected upon. It needs to be taken to our heart. What does it really mean? What does wisdom really mean? And so, when our Dharma journey becomes difficult or frustrating, then we can turn to these ancient teachings. This is from a long time ago, 2,000 years more. But in all that time, the Dharma hasn't changed. Life has changed, society has changed, culture has changed, but Dharma is the one thing that doesn't change, because Dharma means truth. That's truth with a capital T, a big T. And so it means truth. Truth doesn't change. And so we align ourselves with truth, with wisdom, the one in whom wisdom flows easily. That the less of this self-identity there is, the less struggle there is, the less difficulty there is, and the more of the opening the heart. Therefore, more peace, more freedom, and more love. So then I offer this small Dharma talk this morning for your consideration and your reflection. May you all be well and happy.